Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have the latest from the live radar, run for the latest UKV, have a look at the precipitation and the temperature over the next 5 days as we continue to see easterly winds dominate this upcoming working week with increased intensity in those colder pools, especially later on in the week. That will both bring colder temperatures both by day and especially by night. We are looking a lot more widespread frosts come the second half of the week, but also it could turn more of the precipitation towards snow. Not everywhere at this stage because the air mass still isn't quite cold enough, especially for coastal areas, but further inland there will become an increasing risk of the showers and general precipitation turning more towards sleet and, of course, in places, snow. However, beyond that, we could be seeing something a little bit more intense. Now, at the moment, we've got a massive battle going on within the operational runs and within the ensembles. They keep moving around in their confidence that a severely cold air mass could arrive as we head towards the middle of the month. If you had a look at the models last night, or even saw the YouTube short I posted last night, you'll have seen we had some all-time classic cold charts from both the ECMWF and the GFS, and I think a lot of people thought, well, this is it, we're going into a very severely cold spell. However, this morning, the models are backtracked once again, and they are a lot more moderate. Still some colder conditions, but nowhere near as severe as the ECMWF was last night. My gosh, got the -10 isotherm in for the whole of the British Isles for only a couple of days, but for almost a full week it was exceptionally intense. Again, probably not on the intensity as the beast from the east, but perhaps still delivering similar disruption or impacts. But as I said though, the latest runs from this morning are slightly more moderate, but we are still seeing those extreme runs within the ensembles. So it is still a huge battle going on, and we're not quite sure what is going to win out. The pessimistic side of me would say, well, this is another classic cold spell that looks promising but never fully comes off. But at the same time, we've seen this shown from a lot of runs over the past few days and past weeks, so I wouldn't be so sure that it comes to absolutely nothing. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, to like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well, the link's in the description. Now, to start on the live radar, you can continue to see easterly winds are pushing in today. Not as much in the way of precipitation today, but still across East Anglia, we've got these streams of lighter showers, and the same across the far southeast. In these areas, it feels really miserable out there through today. This is actually probably the mildest day we've had for a good few days, probably since Wednesday or Thursday, and probably going to be the mildest day we have for all of the upcoming week. And it's really getting to about 6 or 7 degrees out there. That is the max temperature for most this afternoon. Of course, it is feeling a lot colder out there with the wind chill and feeling more like 2 or 3 degrees. I was out there earlier this morning and my gosh, it felt exceptionally cold, even though it was about 2 or 3 degrees on the thermometer. It felt like -5 more like. As I said, it is going to cool down though progressively through this week. Regardless of those longer term prospects with severe cold, it is going to be a very chilly week this week. And as I said, thermometer temperatures are going to be cold. They're all going to be below average, frosts overnight, but the feel like temperature really is going to hit home, and as I said, it could be increasing risk of some snow. Now, do look at the temperatures. We're at the peak of the day around lunchtime, around 2 p.m. now, and you can see for much of the British Isles, temperatures are hovering around the mid-single digits. You can see those lighter blues indicating more towards the low single digits, maybe even still only hovering around freezing across some of the higher ground. We can also see some pulses of yellow, which is indicating temperatures getting up towards maybe 6, 7, 8 degrees. And you may be wondering, we're seeing an easterly wind. Why is it not 0, 1, 2 degrees? Why aren't we seeing the -10 isotherm coming in? And the simple reason is, if you look out to Europe, Europe's pretty mild as well. This is where the air is coming from. It is cold, it's chilly, but we're not seeing these lighter blues and purples which are stuck well to our east. And it's all because the very cold air masses are not in Europe at the moment. There's no very cold air for us to tap into. But that will all change later on this week. But then we get into the predicament of where is the higher pressure? Where are those easterly winds? And will the Atlantic win out? So pretty much as soon as that very cold air starts to move into Europe, starts to head towards the British Isles, that's where we start to see significant uncertainty in the direction of the winds and the positioning of higher pressure. So Hope that's a sort of brief explanation of why it's not very cold at the moment. There just simply isn't that much cold air to our east, especially this time of year. We would expect a lot more in the way of colder air. We just don't have it, and that's why it's chilly. But we're not seeing widespread snow. We're not seeing temperatures 1 or 2 degrees by day, just because the air is coming in from Europe where it isn't too cold at the moment. But progressively, as those winds continue to draw in from the east, like we're seeing this upcoming week, it is going to get slowly colder by a couple of degrees across the few days, and by Thursday, Friday, probably 3 or 4 degrees high and widespread overnight frosts. Now, if you go over to the latest UKV now and have a look at the precipitation and the temperature over the coming days, you can see those easterly winds continue through this evening. Precipitation could really pep up through around sunset this evening across parts of the Midlands, so do watch out for that. It's going to be very miserable and cold underneath that. See an increased risk of some winteriness further inland, especially across the higher ground of northern England and Wales through Monday. As I said, the main restriction at the moment for winteriness is the dew points. Dew points are a few degrees above freezing, so it's almost impossible to see snow at the moment for most, but the dew points will drop through this week, so it becomes, said, increasingly likely. Through Monday, increased risk of precipitation continuing to push in from the east. As I said, if this air mass was very cold, all of this would be snow, but in this case it's a lot more marginal, and most still seeing a mix or rain. As we progress into Tuesday, again, more of a risk of snow further inland, and progressive to Tuesday into Wednesday, it does turn a bit drier. Through Tuesday and into Wednesday morning, a widespread frost potentially developing. We see clearer skies, and you can see it does turn a bit drier later on in the week, as we do see a slight slacking in the winds. The flow slows down a little bit, but it does increase by the end of the week, and we start seeing more showers pushing in, and this is where the very cold air could start to arrive. We do start to see some really chilly air moving in. Now you can see we're oscillating between cold air masses and chilly average air masses, and that's why we're going to see some up and downs in the precipitation typing and in the thermometer temperatures. You can see through this afternoon we've got this milder wedge across much of England and Wales, and that's why temperatures today are the mildest they've been in a few days, and probably the mildest they'll be all week. As you can see, as we progress into Monday, a colder air mass does re-emerge, and that's why it does turn increasingly colder, and frosts do increase during this week. And those cold air masses remain for much of the week, getting down to -10 at points, but locally down to -10, not a widespread blanket. And that's why, as I said, it's still going to be very marginal as we progress towards the latter part of this week. But very cold air is starting to pull to our northeast. And we're not talking about just an isolated area of cold air. As we'll see from the operational runs in a moment, big area of proper Arctic air is heading into northern and western Europe. Whether it gets to our shores, that is our predicament at the moment. Now, if you do look at the 2-metre temperatures, early this morning, frost across much of Scotland, Northern Ireland, Republic of Ireland, and a bit across southern England, but it's turning milder this afternoon. You can see widely 4 to 7 degrees, may peak at around 8 somewhere this afternoon. Tonight, temperatures dropping away, but not too much, with that milder wedge holding those temperatures slightly above freezing, around the 1 to 4 degree mark, but still could see a frost further northwards, and into Monday afternoon, already much colder. Not much of a temperature rise during the day, widely 0 to 4 degrees. You can see already turning much colder there through Monday as colder air does return. Start to see more of a widespread frost, not a complete widespread frost by this stage. Most areas still hovering around 1 or 2, but where you see those lighter blues developing, or thicker blues, that's where we do see those temperatures drop towards freezing. So inland, southern and western areas, and across much of Scotland favoured there. Into Tuesday afternoon, again another cold day, 0 to 4 degrees, maybe a 5 at best. And the biggest thing is, look out to our east, the North Sea. The temperatures out there are so cold. Look at that, only 3 to 5 degrees across much of the North Sea. That is really cold, and that starts to aid those temperatures getting even colder later on this week. Into Wednesday morning, again, a bit more frost developing, lighter blues again for much of northern England, Scotland and further westwards. And into Wednesday afternoon, again, not getting much above, again, 0 to maybe 6 degrees. Thursday, though, look at this, much more widespread frost developing, as I said, turning much colder later on in the week. And by Thursday afternoon, again, not getting much above 0 to maybe 5 or 6, and another widespread frost there into Friday. So you see, not a massive decrease in temperatures later on in the week, but it's slowly decreasing. And you can see the biggest change really is those overnight temperatures getting much, much colder later on in the week, as much colder, drier air does get established. Now, do have a look at the longer range charts today. As I said, the latest runs are actually a little bit disappointing for colder weather fans. As I said, they've backtracked quite a bit since the runs last night, but I wouldn't be surprised if they went very cold once again later this afternoon into the evening. You can see the easterly winds continue, got no doubts about that as we head over the coming days, but it's when we get to this point here, in around 6-7 days' time, with the high pressures moving to the north, and we are still pulling in easterly winds. They're moderate easterlies, but look at this huge blob of blue. That is exceptionally cold Arctic air heading towards Europe, and you can see it has a very good go. It gets into Scandinavia, Eastern Europe, but look at this, the GFS breaks down the block to our north very quickly and encourages west to southwesterly flows. And this is at day 8. This is not even longer range. This is day 8, just showing you the uncertainty that there is at play. If I go to the 6 p.m. last night, the same time we're streaming bitterly cold easterlies in off the near continent. Like the -10 isotherm is arriving. We go to the 6 a.m. run this morning. We've gone from easterlies to southwesterlies. So it just shows you all about that strength of the block to our north. And that's why we can't take any run too literally, because we still have not got agreement on that strength. We've got agreement that there will be an area of blocking high there. There will be high pressure. But how strong will the high be? And the orientation still very difficult to say. There will be a turning point. There will be that moment of uncertainty within the models, which is where all of these paths do diverge, and that will be coming up in the next few days. I don't know what that is. Probably only those running the computer models who actually have access to all the data will be able to tell where that point is. But it'll be something to do with an area of low pressure, probably out in the Atlantic, maybe to do with the retrogression of the high, where we have massive uncertainty within the models, and that's where all these scenarios start going awry. But at the moment, what we can see is that unfortunately not got a lot of confidence. You can see last night, bitterly cold easterly. This morning, mild southwesterly, and that continues over the coming days. Still looks like very cold air is very close by. The -10 isotherms just across the North Sea into parts of Denmark and Scandinavia, but we go milder, still cold air mixing into some snow across Scotland, but generally not too much different than an average February westerly regime as we head into the second half of the month. Complete opposite to those easterlies that we've been talking about all so much. Go to the 6 p.m. run last night. Look at that. That is an extremely cold, almost a historic run given the last few years. Again, this would be the coldest pattern we've seen probably since February 2021, where we saw a similar easterly, or before that, probably going back towards the beast from the east. These sorts of severity in air masses. So yeah, ridiculous change between runs from an exceptionally cold, widespread, disruptive easterly wind to a bog standard average southwesterly in the space of 12 hours. So this is unfortunately why we've got so many headaches and why we can't give a definitive answer at this stage. Hopefully this has sort of exemplified why we're seeing so many chopping and changing within the outlook, because we are seeing conflicting runs like this from the same model in the space of 12 hours. Now, to compare to the latest GM, very similar with the easterly flow over the coming days. Strong agreement in that. And then we get to this same point later on this week. We continue to see easterly winds. And the GM's a little bit more optimistic in continuing to pull in these easterlies. It blocks out the Atlantic a lot more. So the high pressure is much stronger to our north, because already we're kind of in that milder air. But look how close that bitterly cold air gets. It gets in for all of Denmark, all of Eastern Europe, all of Southeastern Europe, most of Germany there, bordering into parts of the Netherlands and Belgium, but not getting towards France or the UK. so close to this huge block of exceptionally cold air, but it never fully pushes in, and that's because the high pressure slowly breaks down and low pressure slides in off the Atlantic, slowly pushing that cold air away, probably giving significant snow there across much of Central and Eastern Europe. But for the UK, we go into the milder air, flirt with the very cold air, but it never fully comes off. So another similar run where it promises so much, but doesn't fully come off. And then, for example, if we go back to the run yesterday, it wasn't as clear-cut as the GFS was, but you can see it was pretty similar in terms of getting that cold air in. Not, as I said, as strong of an easterly, but still would be very cold. Now, after you finish by looking at the latest ECMWF, this is even worse than the GFS in terms of flipping between the last two runs. Now, the ECMWF, for its main sort of public runs, only runs twice a day, midday and midnight. We've got a 6 a.m. and a 6 p.m. run, but they only go out to sort of day 6, day 7, so they're not too important when we're looking at these longer range. Again, when we're looking at short range stuff, then yes, but when we're looking at sort of day 7 to day 10, we only have 2 runs we look at per day. Now, the difference between the midday run yesterday and the midnight run today, again, is an even bigger shift than the GFS. If we have a look at this, an easterly flow continuing over the coming days, pretty much the same. And then again, we get to the same point as the other runs, where we have a battle between westerlies and easterlies. Initially, it looks like the easterlies are winning, but eventually that cold air gets nudged away, and we get into a very similar scenario to the GM, where bitterly cold air is across much of northern and even into parts of northern Western Europe, Denmark, all the way across Scandinavia, perhaps even flirting with Belgium and the Netherlands. And then the milder air pushes it away. Could see significant snow across Scotland, of course, cold air wrapping in there, but that's a pretty typical pattern. But generally, big, mild southwesterlies there into the final week. So we get oh so close to something very cold, but that high moves away and almost becomes too west-based. It's too much of a west-based negative NAO. And instead, we do go pretty mild, probably chilly initially, but eventually much milder as we do start to see a more of a stronger westerly flow pushing in. But I just wanted to show you the midday run from yesterday. Again, if we go back to a similar point, this is where we start to see that uncertainty. We saw this is pretty much exactly the same as this morning's ECMWF. By this point, day 6, whatever this is. But the difference is the high strengthens to our north, doesn't retrogress too far, and it stays around Greenland. And look at this. The beast gets unleashed from the east. And look at this pattern. Exceptionally cold conditions for over a week there. And we'd be in the absolute freezer for the second half of the month. Again, if we look at the upper air temperatures, the -10 isotherm comes in for all. And look at these charts. Exceptionally cold conditions. -10 isotherms in. Where does it first enter the country? Probably around the 17th, 18th maybe, and it's still in come the 23rd. So 5+ days of persistent -10 isotherm across our shores. That's quite a rare occasion. Again, last time we saw that, maybe February 2021, we definitely saw, I think, that down to about -14 degrees at 850 HPA. But I don't know if we saw the -10 isotherm in for more than 5 days. And of course, this would continue from here. Again, probably looking at 7 or 8 days of -10 here. But definitely before that would be the beast from the east. So I hope this just shows you why we're seeing so many conflicting signals as we do progress into the final 10 days of February. As ever, with these potentially severe colder spells, they're always on a knife edge for the UK because we generally do need almost a perfect block position between Iceland, Greenland and Scandinavia to see these very cold northeasterlies or easterly winds. And at the moment, it is all in the balance. You can see from the latest GFS and ECMWF specifically, the flip between the runs yesterday afternoon into the evening, and it just shows you that on the one hand, yes, we could be looking at a severely cold spell, historic potentially, at least in the past sort of 5 to 10 years maybe, but at the same time we could just see an average westerly wind where we have got a block nearby that is promising, but it doesn't deliver anything too substantial. So those two options are unfortunately still on the cards, and we'll just have to wait and see. Unfortunately, that's the only real thing I can say at the moment, because we keep seeing these changes within these operational runs. And the ensembles are not much help either, if we're being completely honest. If we look at the latest GFS, you can see next week they can't even agree on the upper air temperatures come later on this week. Some are much milder, most are much colder. So I probably would back the colder ones, especially the UKV is cold as well, high resolution, better performing models. So I would probably back these colder options, but even seeing some milder runs here from some of the ensemble members. And you can see when the very cold air could arrive, around that 15th to 20th of February point, you've got a good, maybe a third of runs there, getting bitterly cold down toward the -10, but equally other runs not going very cold, including the operational run today. Again, look at that split, almost 15 to 20 degrees at 850 HPA, and we're not seeing much movement between recent ensemble runs. This is the midnight run, the 6 PM run, perhaps a little bit colder there. You see the operational run, and the midday run from yesterday, perhaps a little bit colder as well, but no real shift. We did see a bit of a cooling trend from, I think it was Friday into Saturday, but since yesterday, since our video yesterday, we've seen no shift. They've kind of stayed the same in terms of probability. So unfortunately, really got an update on that. Humidity temperatures all over the place, some very cold runs, ice days potentially, other runs 10 degrees, so no real confidence there. And dew points still definitely favouring colder dew points through much of the middle part of February, so continental air masses do look favoured. So even if we don't see bitterly cold air, it probably would stay chilly, just being dry and cold, but it eventually probably would turn a bit milder. And finally, if we compare to the ECMWF operational ensemble charts, very, very similar. No agreement there into the middle of the month. Some bitterly cold runs down to -10 to -15, others around 0 or 5. And if we go back to the midday run yesterday, you can see the operational was off the charts. It's not even a complete outlier. It has quite a lot of support there. So definitely a very strong idea of something very cold, but at the same time, we're again not seeing much shift in these ensemble members. As I said though, I do expect in the next couple of days for the models to finally decide. It probably will happen very quickly. We'll probably see 1 or 2 runs leading the way, and then very quickly all the ensembles and other operational runs will follow. We'll have to wait and see exactly when that happens, but as I said, I'm expecting the next couple of days, looking at the time frame of these events normally. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see. I don't want to be too optimistic at this stage because I've seen so many disappointing colder patterns develop. I do remember one vividly around, I think it was December 2021, the lead up to Christmas. So many runs promised an exceptionally cold spell. Probably didn't have as much of a lead up as this one has had. Well, we've been looking at this for a good couple of weeks because the Easterly we have at the moment we thought was going to be a bit colder than it is, but it's turned out a little bit more tame, but still cold. But I remember December 2021, there was such build-up because it was a very cold spell that was coinciding with the days leading up to Christmas, and we all thought, white Christmas coming up, and then 2 or 3 days before it got completely cancelled. It was a similar pattern to this, where it was a high-pressure block towards Greenland and Iceland, and it just never really materialised the strength that we initially anticipated. So again, I've got a bit of pessimism with these sort of patterns because we've seen it so many times before where it has failed to come off. But we'll have to wait and see. All options are still on the table, but of course I'll keep you updated over the coming days. So anyway, thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.